You scroll through your feed every morning, sharing your breakfast, your thoughts, your struggles, your victories, each moment of your day broadcast to the world like a desperate plea for validation. You photograph your coffee, document your workout, announce your relationship status, share your political opinions, post about your problems at work, and even broadcast your family conflicts for strangers to judge. In the quiet moments between posts, when the likes stop coming and the comments slow down, you feel an emptiness that seems to grow deeper with each passing day. The ancient Taoist masters would observe your behavior with profound sadness, recognizing in your constant sharing a fundamental misunderstanding of where true strength originates. They would see someone who has mistaken exposure for connection, noise for communication, and external validation for inner worth. This modern compulsion to document and share every aspect of our lives represents what Taoism would identify as a dangerous departure from the way of natural power. When you post everything, you scatter your energy like seeds thrown carelessly into the wind, most falling on barren ground while you wonder why nothing meaningful grows in your life. The Tao Te Ching speaks of the wise person who acts without forcing, leads without dominating, and achieves without striving. Yet, here you are, forcing your presence into every digital space, dominating conversations with your constant updates, and striving desperately for the attention of people who barely know you. Every post you make is a small act of giving away your power, trading your inner mystery for momentary external recognition, and the cumulative effect is a deep weakening of your spiritual and emotional foundation. The ancient Chinese understanding of personal power rests on the concept of conservation and cultivation. Much like a gardener who knows that the most beautiful flowers grow in protected spaces, away from the harsh winds and the casual trampling of passers-by. When you share everything, you expose your tender growth to every casual critic, every envious observer, every energy vampire who feeds on the emotional content you so freely provide. The Taoist concept of Wu Wei, often translated as non-action, does not mean doing nothing, but rather acting in harmony with natural flow, conserving energy for what truly matters, and understanding that the most powerful actions often happen in silence, away from the eyes of the world. Consider the difference between a river that babbles constantly over every pebble in its path and the deep, quiet ocean that holds its power in stillness. Your social media presence resembles that babbling brook, making noise about every small obstacle, every tiny triumph, every fleeting emotion, while the person who understands Taoist principles moves through life like the ocean, vast and deep, revealing only the surface while keeping the true depth hidden from casual observation. This is not about being secretive or deceptive, but about understanding that your inner world is sacred space that loses its power when constantly exposed to external judgment and manipulation. 1. The principle of containing your essence rather than scattering it to the winds of public opinion. The Taoist tradition teaches that every person possesses what they call Jing, a fundamental life essence that can be cultivated and strengthened or dissipated and wasted. When you post every thought, every feeling, every experience, you are essentially pouring this precious essence out onto the ground, offering it up to strangers who have no investment in your well-being and no understanding of your deeper journey. Think about the last time you shared something deeply personal online, perhaps a struggle you were facing or a moment of vulnerability. Notice how, instead of feeling relieved or supported, you often felt more exposed and somehow diminished afterward. This is because you gave away a piece of your essential self to people who were not worthy vessels for such sacred information. The wise person learns to distinguish between those who deserve access to their inner world and those who are merely curious passers-by. In practical terms, this means developing what the Taoists call discernment about what aspects of your life truly benefit from sharing and what aspects grow stronger when kept private. Your morning routine, your spiritual practices, your deepest fears, your relationship challenges, your financial struggles, your family dynamics. These are all elements of your personal cultivation that lose their transformative power when broadcast publicly. Instead of posting about the meditation you did this morning, simply do the meditation and allow its effects to strengthen you from within. Instead of announcing your intention to make positive changes in your life, quietly begin making those changes and let the results speak for themselves over time. Instead of sharing your relationship problems for public consumption and amateur advice, work through them privately with your partner, or seek guidance from qualified counselors who understand the complexity of human connection. 2. The cultivation of mystery as a source of personal magnetism and spiritual depth. The Tao Te Ching contains a beautiful passage about the sage who is like an uncarved block, simple and natural, containing infinite potential, precisely because they have not been shaped and defined by external forces. When you constantly define yourself through posts, updates, opinions, and declarations, you carve away at this natural mystery, reducing your infinite potential to a series of digital snapshots that capture only the surface of who you are. People become bored with you not because you are boring, but because they feel they know everything about you from your online presence, leaving no room for curiosity, no space for deeper discovery, no invitation for meaningful connection. The most magnetic people in history have understood this principle intuitively. They revealed themselves gradually, in layers, allowing others to discover their depths through actual relationship rather than through public broadcasting. Think about someone in your life who fascinates you, someone you want to know better. And you will likely find that they are someone who does not share everything about themselves immediately. They maintain a sense of mystery not through deception, but through selectivity, sharing appropriate parts of themselves in appropriate contexts with appropriate people. This creates a natural draw, a gravitational pull that invites others into deeper connection. When you post everything, you eliminate this natural dynamic of discovery and replace it with the artificial dynamic of performance and consumption. People follow your updates not because they are genuinely interested in your growth and well-being, but because your constant sharing provides them with entertainment, distraction, or a sense of superiority. They become consumers of your life rather than participants in meaningful relationship with you. The energy exchange becomes imbalanced, with you constantly giving and then constantly taking, leaving you depleted and wondering why your online connections feel so unsatisfying compared to your offline relationships with people who know you through actual presence and shared experience. Have you ever noticed how the people who post the most about their happiness often seem the most desperate for validation, while those who are genuinely content tend to share less and live more? Take a moment to think about this pattern in your own social media consumption and ask yourself honestly, which version of yourself do you want to embody moving forward? If this resonates with your experience, share in the comments. I am ready to find strength in silence and depth in mystery. Your honesty might inspire someone else to begin their own journey toward authentic power and meaningful connection. 3. The understanding that true influence comes from authentic being rather than constant broadcasting. The Taoist principle of leading by example rather than by proclamation recognizes that people are influenced more by what they observe in your actual behavior over time than by what you announce about yourself in the moment. When you constantly post about your values, your goals, your spiritual practices, and your life philosophy, you are essentially trying to convince others and perhaps yourself that you embody these qualities. But true embodiment speaks for itself and requires no announcement. The person who has genuinely cultivated inner peace does not need to post about their meditation practice because their presence itself radiates the calm they have developed. The person who has genuinely developed self-discipline does not need to announce their fitness goals because their consistent actions over time demonstrate their commitment. This creates a paradox that many people struggle to understand in our social media culture. The more you try to appear wise, successful, spiritual, or accomplished through your posts, the more you actually demonstrate the opposite qualities. Wisdom does not need to announce itself. Success speaks through results rather than through declarations. Spiritual development manifests in how you treat others and how you handle challenges, not in how many inspirational quotes you can share or how often you post about your practices. True accomplishment creates its own evidence without requiring constant documentation and validation from others. The Taoist approach to influence recognizes that lasting change in others comes through inspiration rather than information. When people observe someone living authentically, consistently embodying their values without fanfare, they are naturally inspired to examine their own lives and consider making positive changes. But when someone constantly talks about their values while their actions tell a different story, or when they share so much information that it becomes noise rather than signal, the effect is often the opposite. People become skeptical, bored, or resentful of what appears to be performative behavior rather than authentic living. 4. The recognition that your energy is finite and precious, deserving of careful stewardship rather than careless distribution. Every post you make, every update you share, every comment you respond to represents an expenditure of mental and emotional energy that could be invested in activities that actually improve your life and the lives of those closest to you. The time you spend crafting posts, selecting photos, responding to comments, and monitoring reactions is time that could be spent in meditation, in meaningful conversation with people you love, in developing skills that serve your long-term goals, in enjoying simple pleasures without feeling the need to document them. or in serving others in ways that create real positive impact rather than digital validation. Consider keeping a simple log for 1 week of how much time you actually spend on social media, including not just active posting but also passive consumption, responding to notifications, and thinking about what to share next. Most people are shocked to discover that they are spending multiple hours per day in these activities. Hours that add up to entire days each month and weeks each year. This represents a massive opportunity cost, time, and energy that could be redirected toward activities that actually build the life you want rather than activities that merely create the appearance of the life you want. The Taoist concept of energy conservation extends beyond just time management to include emotional and spiritual energy as well. Every time you share something personal, you open yourself to the judgments, opinions, and emotional reactions of others. This requires you to spend energy processing and responding to feedback that often has nothing to do with your actual well-being and everything to do with the projections and insecurities of people who barely know you. You find yourself defending choices that need no defense, explaining decisions that require no explanation, and adjusting your behavior based on the reactions of people whose opinions should have no bearing on your life direction. 5. The development of inner strength through private practice and personal discipline, rather than public performance and external validation. The strongest trees in the forest are not those that sway dramatically in every breeze, announcing their presence with constant motion, but those that have developed deep root systems that anchor them firmly to the earth, allowing them to remain stable and strong regardless of external conditions. Your character develops in the same way, through consistent private actions that build integrity, resilience, and wisdom over time, rather than through public demonstrations that may impress others, but do not necessarily create lasting internal change. When you make your personal development a public performance, you introduce dynamics that can actually interfere with genuine growth. The desire for likes, comments, and positive feedback can become a motivation that competes with the intrinsic motivation that drives authentic change. You may find yourself choosing practices or making decisions based on how they will look to others rather than based on what actually serves your development. You may also find yourself becoming discouraged when your public sharing does not receive the response you hoped for, allowing external reactions to derail your commitment to practices that were serving you well before you made them public. The Taoist masters understood that the most powerful transformations happen in silence, in the space between thoughts, in the moments when no one is watching and no one is keeping score. These are the moments when you can be completely honest with yourself, when you can face your shadows without pretense, when you can make mistakes and learn from them without external judgment, and when you can develop the kind of authentic strength that serves you regardless of circumstances. This does not mean that you should never share anything about your growth or that you cannot inspire others through your example. Rather, it means being selective about what you share, when you share it, and why you are choosing to make it public. 6. The cultivation of genuine relationships through presence and depth rather than through performance. And surface-level connection. Human beings are designed for intimate connection, for the kind of deep knowing that comes from spending time together, sharing experiences, working through challenges together, and witnessing each other's growth over time. When you substitute social media interaction for this kind of genuine relationship, you may feel temporarily connected, but you will ultimately feel more lonely and disconnected than before. This is because digital interaction, no matter how frequent or seemingly intimate, cannot replace the irreplaceable elements of human connection: physical presence, shared vulnerability in safe spaces, nonverbal communication, and the kind of trust that develops only through consistent, reliable interaction over time. The people who know you through your social media presence know a curated version of you, a highlight reel that represents perhaps 5% of your actual experience. They do not know how you handle stress when no one is watching, how you treat service workers when you are having a bad day, what you do with your time when you are not posting about it, how you navigate difficult conversations with people you love, or what your actual daily life looks like beyond the moments you choose to share. This means that their opinions of you, whether positive or negative, are based on incomplete information and therefore should carry very little weight in your decision-making process. Instead of investing energy in maintaining these surface-level connections with hundreds or thousands of people, the Taoist approach would suggest investing that same energy in developing deeper, more meaningful connections with a smaller number of people who actually know you and care about your well-being. This means spending time with people face-to-face, having conversations that go beyond small talk, sharing your real struggles and celebrations with people who have earned the right to know you deeply, and being present for others in ways that digital interaction cannot replicate. 7. The understanding that your worth is inherent rather than dependent on external recognition or validation. The constant need to post and share often stems from a fundamental misunderstanding about where value comes from. When you base your sense of worth on likes, comments, shares, and other forms of digital validation, you place your emotional well-being in the hands of strangers who have no investment in your actual happiness and success. This creates a cycle of dependency that becomes increasingly difficult to break, as you find yourself needing more and more external validation to feel good about yourself, while simultaneously feeling less and less satisfied with the validation you receive. The Taoist understanding of human value recognizes that your worth is not something you earn or lose based on your achievements, your appearance, your popularity, or your ability to impress others. Your value is inherent in your existence as a conscious being capable of growth, love, and contribution. This worth cannot be increased by positive feedback or decreased by criticism. It exists independently of external circumstances and remains constant regardless of how others perceive or respond to you. When you truly understand this principle, the compulsion to constantly seek validation through posting begins to fade naturally, replaced by a quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are regardless of who is watching. This does not mean becoming indifferent to others or rejecting all feedback and input from people in your life. Rather, it means developing the discernment to distinguish between feedback that serves your growth and feedback that merely reflects the projections and insecurities of others. It means learning to value the opinions of people who actually know you and care about your well-being while becoming less reactive to the casual judgments of strangers. Most importantly, it means developing your own internal compass for evaluating your choices and behaviors, using your own values and long-term goals as your primary reference point rather than constantly looking outside yourself for guidance and approval. The journey from weakness to strength, from scattered energy to focused power, from external validation to inner confidence, begins with a simple but radical choice: the choice to live your life rather than perform it. This means doing things because they serve your growth and well-being rather than because they will look good to others. It means having experiences without feeling compelled to document them. It means developing practices that serve your development without needing to announce them to the world. It means building relationships through presence and depth rather than through digital performance. It means trusting that your authentic being is far more powerful than any image you could create through posting. The Taoist way is not about becoming a hermit or rejecting all forms of communication and connection. It is about understanding the difference between authentic sharing and compulsive broadcasting, between genuine connection and performative interaction, between real influence and digital noise. When you align yourself with these principles, you begin to experience a different kind of power. A power that comes from within rather than from external sources. A power that grows stronger in silence and deeper in mystery. Your life is not a product to be marketed. Your experiences are not content to be consumed. And your worth is not determined by your ability to entertain or impress strangers on the internet. You are a complex, evolving being on a unique journey of growth and discovery. The most interesting chapters of your story are being written in the moments between posts. In the conversations that happen away from screens, in the quiet times when you are alone with your thoughts, and in the relationships that develop through shared presence rather than shared content. If this message resonates with something deep within you, if you recognize yourself in the patterns we have explored, if you feel ready to reclaim your power from the scattered energy of constant sharing, then begin today with a simple practice. Choose one thing that you would normally post about and instead keep it private. Notice what happens in your body, in your mind, in your emotional landscape when you allow an experience to exist without external validation. Notice the strength that begins to build when you stop giving away your essence and begin containing it for your own growth, and the benefit of those who truly know you. The ancient masters understood that true power whispers while weakness shouts, that genuine strength grows in silence while artificial strength needs constant announcement, and that the deepest wisdom reveals itself gradually to those who are patient enough to discover it rather than demanding it be displayed immediately for all to see. Your journey toward authentic strength begins not with what you choose to share, but with what you choose to keep sacred, not with how much attention you can attract, but with how much depth you can cultivate, not with how many people follow your updates, but with how few people truly know your heart. If you found value in this exploration of Taoist wisdom and its application to modern life, consider sharing this message with others who might benefit from these ancient insights. Like this content to help it reach people who are ready to trade performance for presence and scattered energy for focused power. Subscribe to join a community of individuals who are committed to living authentically rather than performing digitally, and who understand that true strength comes from within rather than from the opinions of strangers. Together, we can rediscover the power of mystery, the strength of silence, and the profound satisfaction that comes from building a life worth living rather than a feed worth following.